Okay guys, so in this video we are going to compare the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF issued by BlackRock, ticker symbol IBIT, with Strategy, ticker symbol MSTR. So of course, for some of you guys out there that want to invest in Bitcoin, you can obviously purchase it outright on most cryptocurrency exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, Robinhood, et cetera, Binance. But let's say you wanted to invest in kind of something for your retirement, or you wanted to have more leverage with your investment. Maybe you wanted to trade options or something like that. And you simply just wanted to be able to kind of put your money outside of the cryptocurrency system, but still invest in the power of Bitcoin. So we're basically going to talk about two of the most popular, if not the most popular, Bitcoin stocks and ETFs are traded. So I would say by far, I believe that Strategy stock, ticker symbol MSTR, is the most popular Bitcoin-backed stock in America. Okay, it trades on the Nasdaq because Strategy holds over 528,000 Bitcoin. And as you can see, ever since Michael Saylor first purchased Bitcoin back in 2020, the returns have been phenomenal. So the returns have been over 2,000%. And then with the IBIT Bitcoin Trust, okay, that one is an ETF that was launched in January in 2004 and allows you to basically allow BlackRock to take custody of your Bitcoin, and you pay them a small fee of 0.25% annually. So we're just going to quickly compare the two, and we give you guys some suggestions on which ones I would prefer based on what your investment goals are, which type of accounts you're using. So let's just get right into it. So I jotted down some notes here on the notepad. So kind of let's just go over both of them. Kind of move this over to the side. Okay, so let's first talk about IBIT. So IBIT, like I mentioned, the BlackRock ETF has liquidity from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday on the United States. Okay, this ETF cannot be traded pre-market. It cannot be traded in after-hours trading. So simply how the ETF works is BlackRock at the end of at 4 o'clock p.m. they end up either buying Bitcoin for the trust or selling Bitcoin for the trust based upon whether there's positive net inflows, so they'll be buying Bitcoin, or if there's negative outflows, they have to sell the Bitcoin off. So the amount of Bitcoin that BlackRock takes custody of does change every day. So it really just depends on the net inflows or net outflows. Now there's several ways to track this information. Okay, you can just simply head over to BlackRock's website, and they try to give you real-time information that's updated at the end of each trading day on how much Bitcoin they're holding. So as you can see here on the IBIT website, the IBIT BlackRock ETF is currently holding about 572,000 Bitcoin, but this number will change, okay, based on whether it's net inflows or net outflows. So they don't really, it's not like MSTR where there's a fixed amount of holdings. These holdings are fixed, okay? As long as Strategy doesn't sell, they should have at least 528,000 Bitcoin and counting, because usually Saylor and his team over there, they usually keep buying just consistently, okay? So a little bit different there. Now, what will end up happening is you'll end up losing a bit of money over time due to the fees, okay? And that's just simply because IBIT does charge a custody fee, a very low one as well, but that's just one of the perks of having someone else custody your Bitcoin. You're gonna have to pay them a fee. So as we talked about, IBIT uses third-party custody. I believe most of the Bitcoin they have is custodied by Coinbase. So that does kind of lower your risk because you don't really have to worry about taking custody of Bitcoin yourself. But if something were to happen to Coinbase or something like that, that could potentially put the IBIT trust at a bit of risk. So this is something to think about. And of course, we talked about the low fees, very low fees, lower than most ETFs, okay, only 25 basis points or 0.25%. And you can also sell covered calls on IBIT as well on a US stock market trading platform. For example, this one here is Robinhood. So as you can see here, you can trade options. So what this does is it basically allows you, for every 100 shares of IBIT you own, you can actually generate yield on your shares as long as you sell them out of the money, and the price of IBIT doesn't go over your strike price until when the option expires. So that's another way to kind of generate a dividend on your shares. And finally, you can also borrow on margin as well. Once again, you can borrow on margin if you have, for example, on Robinhood, if you have at least $2,000 worth of IBIT, you can borrow on margin and get money, use that to pay your bills and stuff like that. So there is a way to kind of generate, a potential way to tap funds without actually selling IBIT. Okay. So like I said, this is usually good for things like retirement accounts. If you're holding custody of Bitcoin for someone like a spouse or your children in a custodial account, and you want them to have some Bitcoin by the time they turn 18, but you don't want to take custody of it, IBIT is a great solution. Now, MSTR is a little bit different. Okay, MSTR is an actual stock in a publicly traded company, so you're actually a shareholder, okay, in this company. So it's a little bit different. It's not an ETF. It's not a trust. So basically, you're taking on the risks of the company strategy itself. As you can see here, they have a lot of their metrics. Now, the difference between strategy is that this stock trades a little bit differently. Okay, the company has debt that they've used to acquire Bitcoin. As you can see here, they have about $8 billion worth of debt, and they trade at a premium. So the premium is around twice the net asset value of the Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So to kind of explain how that works, if you take a look here, the Bitcoin that strategy holds, which is 528,000 Bitcoin, is worth about $43 billion at current market prices. But the actual market cap of the company is higher than that. Okay, the actual market cap of the company is trading almost at $80 billion. So you ended up paying a premium to basically invest in strategy stock, where the premium is basically twice as much as the Bitcoin holdings. Now, this number will fluctuate. Usually when this number gets closer to 1, that means that strategy stock is on sale, okay? Simply because you're basically paying the same amount for the Bitcoin that they have on their balance sheet. But sometimes you'll see, as people get excited about crypto, the markets change, this number will creep up towards 3 or more. Now, me in the long term, I believe Bitcoin net asset value will replace PE ratios for Bitcoin holding stocks, meaning that, looking at companies won't simply trade close to 1 times or 2 times the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, just like companies don't trade at, their earnings, right? So a lot of stocks out there trade at 5 times, 10 times, 15 times earnings. So if a stock is traded at a PE ratio of 15, that means it takes 15 years to basically get your investment back. It takes 15 years for the earnings based on the amount you paid for the stock. So this is something to definitely take a look at when you're investing in strategy stock. But generally, I like to buy this when this is as close to 1 as possible. And then once this number starts to creep up, it's usually time to either take profits or think about sitting on the position a bit until things get cheaper. So like I said, with a strategy stock, you have liquidity from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Now, on a platform like Robinhood, you can actually trade strategy stock pretty much 24/7, except for on the weekends, okay, because Robinhood enables 24-hour trading. So you're just able, a little bit more liquid. It's actually pretty liquid, almost as liquid as Bitcoin itself, depending on the platform you're trading on. So that's really useful for you guys out there that want to get in and out of the stock pretty quickly. Now, strategy also has a Bitcoin yield. And what I mean by Bitcoin yield is simply that the company ends up purchasing Bitcoin every quarter, every month usually, and then they issue shares or issue debt to acquire that Bitcoin. So Bitcoin yield is basically a calculation of the appreciation of the Bitcoin holdings compared to the shares outstanding. So this is another good thing about MSTR stock, simply because they have a Bitcoin yield, and it's like buying MSTR stock would be like buying Bitcoin every quarter, every year without putting any more money in the pot, whereas IBIT, that doesn't happen, okay? And another good thing about MSTR is there's no fees. So while you have to pay a custody fee with IBIT, right, 0.25% every year, you don't have to pay any fees with MSTR, okay? So that can save you money in the long run, especially planning to hold 10 to 20 years or more. And then you, of course, you can sell covered calls just like you can do with IBIT, right? Strategy has an options chain, okay, where you can sell calls on your shares. You see here, you can trade options right here. And it pull the options up so you can trade options and generate income on your shares. As long as you have at least 100 shares of strategy stock, you can sell them and generate income. So this is another advantage of investing in strategy stock as well, very similar to IBIT. And then also you can borrow on margin. So like just with Robinhood, you can borrow on margin with IBIT. You can borrow on margin with MSTR as long as you have at least $2,000. So let's say you needed an emergency purchase, or you wanted to basically generate some capital without selling your MSTR shares. That's another way to do it. And finally, there are future stock splits and potential dividends coming down the road. So as you guys didn't know, MSTR already has done a 10-for-1 stock split. So if the current price of MSTR right now is around $289, they ended up issuing 10 times as many shares because the stock price got out of hand. When I first invested in MSTR, the stock price was like $300. Then it crept up to $1,000. And then at one point it was around $2,000. So Saylor and his team, they ended up doing a 10-for-1 split to kind of get the stock price down and make the options more affordable. So in reality, the true intrinsic value of MSTR stock is $2,890. And they might do a 10-for-1 split again. Okay, under Saylor's recent plan, they wanted to increase the amount of shares outstanding to to as many as 1 billion, okay, depending on what they wanted to do in the future. And that definitely supports future stock splits. Will increase the amount of shares you own, but it won't increase the intrinsic value you have in the company. And then finally, dividends, okay? It is possible, as you know, right now Strategy is about a $78, $80 billion company. Let's say it grows into, a $1 trillion company, okay? Let's say it does a 10 or a 15x as Bitcoin's price goes up. Normally, you're going to see, obviously Strategy trades at a premium. It's probably always going to trade at a premium because if it trades 1-to-1, most people would just prefer to own the ETF. So if this continues, it might be possible in the future with the largest corporate Bitcoin stash on the planet. It might be possible for them to pay a dividend in the future, just like companies like Meta and Nvidia, Apple. So most of these big tech companies pay a dividend. So might be possible to actually be able to generate some passive income through dividends with your MSTR shares. That's just not possible with IBIT. So I think MSTR is good. I have MSTR as well. I like it because of the Bitcoin yield and no fees and the potential for dividends in the future. So like I said, for most people starting out, I would say MSTR is definitely good if you're younger, you just have more time and you're just not worried about the volatility, because MSTR is extremely more volatile than IBIT, okay? When IBIT basically tracks the price of Bitcoin, and MSTR is a multiplier of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin goes up, MSTR really runs. And when Bitcoin crashes, MSTR is really going to crash. So I would say if you want more risk, get into MSTR. If you just want basically to have Bitcoin but just not take custody of it, get into IBIT. So MSTR is really good for brokerage accounts, high risk brokerage accounts and things like that. And I think IBIT is probably better for managing either other people's money if you're in a hedge fund manager, or you're running an endowment, or you're managing money for your spouse or your kids. Probably go with the safety of IBIT. Now IBIT technically is more safer simply because BlackRock's just taking custody of the Bitcoin, that's it. But if MSTR, if Strategy were to mismanage funds or to accumulate too much debt, things could happen and they might be forced to liquidate their Bitcoin position, which would take the stock. So that's about it, guys. I hope you guys got a quick rundown of IBIT versus MSTR. I own both personally. Like I said, I like to diversify by owning Bitcoin outright, IBIT, and MSTR. And, I just like to put a little bit of money in each one. You never know. Each vehicle has its own, pros and cons. So I just like to be diversified. I don't like to go all in on anything. I like to have a little bit of all the good stuff. So that's it for now, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, give us a thumbs up and a like if you enjoyed my content. And press subscribe to get more Bitcoin and more crypto and just good content for me in general and stuff that I'm doing in my life. I want to share with you guys. Try to be as transparent as possible. So that's all I got. Until next time, guys. Take care.